Right,
Okay.
Let's get into the last lap of our discussion this morning. British Prime Minister Theresa May still stagger on as Britain's Prime Minister after surviving a vote of no confidence.
Yes, indeed. And lawmakers voted by 325 to 306 in favor of her government remaining in power. Now, the latest twist in Britain's Britain's political drama leaves several options open, including crashing out of the EU without a deal or not exiting at all. Mofe Ashenku reports.
306, the noes to the left, 325.
British Prime Minister Theresa May's withdrawal plan from the European Union may very well be in shambles, but she just survived the no-confidence votes. The opposition Labour Party had tabled the motion after Mrs May's parliamentary loss by the worst margin for a British government in almost 100 years. In what perfectly sums up the chaotic state of British politics at the moment, many of the MPs who cast votes of confidence in the government were the same ones who voted against the Brexit deal the night before.
Before there can be any positive discussions about the way forward, the government must remove clearly, once and for all, the prospect of the catastrophe of a no-deal Brexit from the EU and all the chaos that would come as a result of that. And I invite the Prime Minister to confirm now that the government will not countenance a no-deal Brexit from the European Union.
The Prime Minister is now calling on lawmakers to back her government so she can finish the job.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased that this House has expressed its confidence in the government tonight. I do not take this responsibility lightly, and my government will continue its work to increase our prosperity, guarantee our security, and to strengthen our union. And yes, we will also continue to work to deliver on the solemn promise we made to the people of this country to deliver on the result of the referendum and leave the European Union.
She has until Monday to voice her next move. So what are her options? She might go back to Brussels, seeking further concessions for yet another vote on her Brexit deal in the future. She will also have to go back to focusing on getting an alternative Brexit deal through Parliament. But what Mrs May says she doesn't want is a general election, which would bring more months of uncertainty. She is also against a second referendum, which is basically a second chance for British voters to say, this hassle isn't worth it. But some Britons disagree and are already backing a second referendum, but believe it's not the right time for a general election.
I think, yeah, second referendum, definitely. I think that's the way to do it.
I don't think a general election would be a very good idea for us at the moment, but I also don't think that we can continue as we currently are with no real alternatives. And so probably the best thing to do is throw everything away and start again.
This week's developments have left Mrs May in control, but weakened and without a clear way forward. Just 72 days until Britain is due to leave the European Union. Mofe Ashenku, TVC News.
All right, we have journalist and broadcaster Yanga TV, Juliana Olayinka, joining us right here in the studio to discuss this developments with Brexit.
Oh yeah, and she is also the host of Journalist Hangout UK.
Yes, yeah, good to have you.
It's good to see you.
And of course, Global Affairs Analyst Colin Nweke joining us via Skype from Brussels. He's a Global Affairs Analyst. Good morning and good to see you. I guess it's the first time we're seeing you on the show this year.
Indeed, Ngozi. Happy New Year in
Morning,
yes,
Collins.
Indeed.
Morning.
All right, let's bring it to Juliana right here in the studio to help us understand very briefly, what this whole Brexit thing is all about. You might want to throw that in, but specifics now. Now that Theresa May has survived the no confidence vote, what next?
Gosh, well, what next? Your package really did outline a lot of the things that she may do. I think there's now a tectonic shift, really, in the way Britain has been run. I was reading a really interesting article in the New York Times, and I think, you know, Britain has always been seen as a country that's stable, you know, that is ruled by an iron fist. But what we're seeing actually now is that it's out of control. You know, May did win the no confidence vote, which a lot of people were not surprised she was going to win. They were expecting her to win that.
Really?
But then, of course, yes, they were, because the hardline Brexiteers don't want an early election because they don't want to give the Labour Party a chance to potentially have a second referendum. So even those who were hardline Brexiteers that didn't vote for May's withdrawal bill still don't want to hand it over to the opposition. So there are bitter divisions.
So people have been talking about the second referendum right now, to be or not to be, but if on the ground where the second referendum comes on board, how much of a game changer is it going to be?
Oh, totally, because it's the democratic process. Let's not forget Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary at the time, she was a Remainer, which is why she doesn't have the support from her party. But then she believes in the democratic process. She is the Prime Minister. She is the head of one of the world's most important economies, and she doesn't want to do something that will have detrimental effect in history. So she's saying we have to stick, even though it was only 51% of the population that voted to leave. She doesn't want to turn her back on that. And she's not U-turning. And, you know, who can blame her? One moment she's losing a Commons vote. The next moment she's winning a Commons vote. There was a vote within her party to try and take her down. She won that. Who else is going to take this forward? Nobody else will. All the big players have resigned, including Boris Johnson.
All right. Well, Collins and Worker, do we have a Margaret Thatcher in the making here? Because she seems to be surviving.
The Iron Lady.
Yeah, the Iron Lady. She seems to be surviving all the blows from here and there. But let me take it to Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, who insists that the no deal should be taken off the table. How much of this whole Brexit thing is about, you know, the interest of, you know, the British interest, and on the other hand, Jeremy Corbyn's interest, because that seems to be playing out here? Collins, did you hear my question?
All right,
it looks like Collins didn't hear that. But let's bring it back to Juliana. You heard my point there.
I'm not sure if it's really about Jeremy Corbyn. I think, again, 118 of Theresa May's own MPs voted against her withdrawal bill. So she needs to really take that back and look at how she can appease the hardliners. The hardliners are ready to go into March the 29th, which, let me tell you now, is just more than 8 weeks away, with a no deal, which could be catastrophic. Again, there are some hardliners who believe that's not the case. You know, you had the Bank of England, you even had President Barack Obama warning Britain, you cannot leave, do not leave. All of the heads of states across the world were saying it would be catastrophic, and it hasn't been. So even though we are scared and we think, oh gosh, it could be doomsday if we don't have a deal when it gets to March the 29th, but it possibly may not be. We don't know, because we're going through uncharted territory.
Yeah, Juliana, let's even bring it back to one of the simplest questions an average African from this part of the world will be asking.
What?
Britain has been in the European Economic Community since when it was EEC since 1973.
43 years or so.
Exactly, over 40 years now. Why does Britain want to leave the EU?
Well, Britain wants to leave the EU because there was a wave of populist sentiment that was sweeping through Europe, that swept through America, which has seen Donald Trump getting power. People were feeling isolated. We've got a global economy. It's cheaper to get things through China. The industries in the north of England, those who had worked there all of their lives, families that had, you know, generations of families that were relying on this income, no longer saw the big bucks. You know, they were feeling left out through Westminster, and they were teething to the right. There was a sentiment growing from the parties like the UK Independence Party and Nigel Farage that was going to the grassroots, speaking to these people, telling them that they mattered. And, you know, some people say that David Cameron was arrogant, but he tried to appease those voters by saying, look, if you feel like the free movement of people and the Polish and the Romanians and everybody coming from Europe, which is part of that deal, which is part of the free trade movement, which includes the free movement of people, they said, look, if you don't want these people to get your jobs anymore. Let's have a vote. And that was very, very arrogant of him. And of course, he lost because he was unpopular. And now we're in the situation that we're in. That's why.
And now Theresa May is saying she wants to take it back to the people. She does not want to let the people down who have said, we want Brexit, even though by a slim margin. Now she's going to address the Parliament come Monday. What would she be telling them?
I think she is going to be speaking to key players. I think last night she did call on leaders of other parties, including the DUP. Let's not forget Theresa May made a slip-up by calling a general election, which she basically lost. You know, she's in a minority government. She doesn't have the backing of the DUP. Let's not forget Ireland, which is a huge factor, the north and the south, and that hard border, because there has been terrible violence there. And Theresa May doesn't want to see that again. So what she needs to do, she needs to call her people and make sure she has the support, and it's going to be difficult.
All right, March, I understand we have Collins Nweke back on right now. Collins, if you can hear me, let me ask you, basically, you have been in Europe, you've been to parts of the Europe, and even back home from here. Brexit, to be or not to be, what does this mean for Africans who would be traveling to the UK or traveling to Europe, as the case may be, depending on what sides that one is going to?
Well, thank you once more for having me. I believe that Africans are concerned, especially Anglophone Africa, because they share quite a lot with the UK. Our educational system, the language is no barrier, and so on and so forth. So quite a number of Africans living in mainland Europe actually call Britain a second home. To the extent that a good number of them, as soon as they can, actually, migrate further to the UK, being European citizens and having the same rights just as anybody. That's number one. Number two, on the area of business, there is a whole lot of business going on between Africans living in mainland Europe and the UK. And with the Brexit, chaos, for want of a better word to describe it, Africans are getting more and more concerned. Of course, let's not forget the fact that there are, a small group of Africans who believe that Brexit will be a good thing for Africa as a continent, because it therefore means that business penetration between UK as an independent country and some African countries will actually deepen. We have seen that, with the visit made by, Theresa May a couple of months ago, which is preparatory for, Brexit going out and then, increasing exports to UK and vice versa.
Of course, in other words, Brexit is a win-win situation for African countries, including Nigeria. I mean, Britain. Nigerians call Britain a second home. Staying with you, Collins Nweke, what are the options that you think? What really are the low-hanging fruits that you think, Theresa May should explore to have her way?
Well, first and foremost, I believe that Theresa May has got to immediately, as the first low-hanging fruit, jettison her stubbornness in terms of how she negotiates. The red line put in place by her government, by herself, needs to be revisited. I think it is important that Theresa May and her government realizes that the option of no deal should be put off the table. And that is if she's actually serious in getting a cross-party discussion and to arrive to a compromise. Because as things stand, if you listen to the debate at the European Parliament yesterday, you will observe that the European Parliament is unshaky in their resolve that no deal is no-go area. And Theresa May, has actually heard that also from Jeremy Corbyn, that negotiations to find a compromise going forward, would start as soon as no deal option is put on the table. So the choice is there. And then, of course, you have to also remember that at this point, it's a bit too early to assess the consequences of the vote against the withdrawal agreement, 2 days ago. Because, as a matter of fact, a second referendum, indeed, is a very, very clear possibility going forward. So these are questions I can see right now.
Okay. Collins Mweke, we must thank you for talking to us this morning on Skype from Brussels. Yeah. Juliana, we don't have all the time anymore. We have to leave you here now. But we must thank you also for coming. Host Journalist Hangout UK. Thank you for coming on the program.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. I'll be back.
Oh,
say
yeah,
hi.
exactly.
Say hi when you go back. Tomorrow,
we hope to have
right?
you more.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.